I'm going to call the meeting to order today since this is our first regular meeting and we need to do election of presiding officers. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:32 and do roll call. Councilmember Medina.
Present.
Councilmember John Bowders is absent. Councilmember Donahue.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Councilmember Pats.
Here.
Board Member Collins.
Present.
Board Member Donaldson.
Here.
Board Member Inch.
Here.
Board Member Nguyen.
Here.
Board Member Vargas.
Here.
All right. So the next thing up is election of presiding officers. You can have a motion. The way it was set up from our previous meeting is there'll be a city council member for the May meeting and a board member for the November meeting. Looking for a motion.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
The setup of the rules that were discussed at the last meeting was that a council member will be presiding over the May meeting. So we're looking for a motion on that one first, and then the second one will be a presiding officer for the November meeting. So we're set up after this meeting. So we can have a motion from any of the committee members for a city council member for the May meeting.
Motion by Councilmember Martinez.
Oh, I'd like to nominate Mayor Medina to chair the meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Martinez, second by Councilmember Pats. Roll call. Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Bowders absent. Councilmember Donahue.
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez.
Aye.
Councilmember Pats.
Aye.
Member Collins.
Yes.
Board Member Donaldson.
Yes.
Board Member Inch.
Yes.
Board Member Nguyen.
Yes.
Board Member Vargas.
Yes.
Motion passes to appoint Mayor Medina to chair the May meeting.
Can we get a motion for a school board member to chair the November meeting?
I'd like to nominate Member Vargas.
I'll second.
Motion by Board Member, I'm sorry, it was Nguyen, sorry. Motion by Board Member Nguyen, second by Board Member Collins. I'll call the roll. Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Bowders absent. Councilmember Donahue.
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez.
Aye.
Councilmember Pats.
No.
Board Member Collins.
Yes.
Board Member Donaldson.
Yes.
Board Member Inch.
No.
Board Member Nguyen.
Yes.
Board Member Vargas.
Yes.
Motion passes, so the chair of the November meeting will be Board Member Vargas.
All right. Any public comment for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, let's go to the approval of November 1st, 2018 special meeting action minutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Get a motion from Member Pats and a second from Member Martinez. Please call the roll.
Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Board Member Bowders absent. Member Donahue.
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez.
Aye.
Councilmember Pats.
Aye.
Board Member Collins.
Yes.
Board Member Donaldson.
Yes.
Board Member Inch.
Yes.
Board Member Nguyen.
Point of order, do members who were not in office at the time of that meeting vote regardless?
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you.
Board Member Vargas. So that would be also for Donaldson. So with 2 abstentions from Nguyen and Donaldson, Board Member Vargas.
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes passes with 2 abstentions.
Great. 6.1 parcel tax discussion. I understand there is no presentation on this item tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct. The presenter from CFW is unable to attend this evening, so I'm asking to table that conversation if possible.
Okay. Member Collins.
So I was just, sorry for the interruption, but I just think it's appropriate that we have new board members and they have not been introduced. So I was just wondering if it's okay with everyone that we take a minute to welcome them to the table and make introductions. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great. We'd like to welcome a couple of new board members. We've got Member Nguyen and Member Donaldson, who I believe this is your first ECCL City Schools meeting. Congratulations. Welcome here.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very nice comment. Okay, so you've got a request to table the item. Do we have any discussion on this item? Any motions from members? I do have a comment. I would ask that rather than tabling and continuing this item to the next November meeting, that instead this item be presented at a special meeting of the city schools or an ad hoc meeting between two members of the school board and our budget and governance subcommittee for an in-depth review. Yes.
I'd like to support your idea on a special meeting.
Another special or an ad hoc? Do you have a preference?
Special to be inclusive.
Okay. What do other people think?
I think it'd be a great idea to meet again.
Okay.
this
So
issue.
people prefer to do a special meeting with all of us rather than an ad hoc subcommittee to study this in depth? Okay, great. Let's schedule one of those. And I'd also like at that meeting to have reports from the last parcel tax from 2015 to 2018. I don't think we had the reports for the prior ones. That was a request by Member Bowders to have those presented when we do discuss this again.
So Mayor Medina, to clarify then, this would not necessarily be a meeting of the ECCL Governance Committee, but a joint meeting of the school board and city council?
Yes.
To a special joint meeting to discuss this particular topic?
Yes.
So we'll wait for a motion from the group as a whole, and then the staff would work to schedule that.
Awesome.
Can I get some clarity? Oh, sorry. Can I get some clarity as to, there's usually timelines on these things, so I don't know how much of a hurry we are to have this meeting, or, I guess I'm just in the dark as to when you guys are planning to go out, if you're planning to go out for a parcel tax. There's a counting backwards from there, so I don't know the urgency or when, because I'm fine waiting until the fall if that lines up with the timeline as opposed to having a special meeting. So some dates would be helpful. I'm sort of looking to you, Dr. Scott.
We do not have any definitive dates as of yet. We will have another presentation by CFW on May 8th, just to add to clarifying questions that from the previous presentation, but there has not been any direction that has been provided by the board as of yet. It could be as early as May 8th, or it could be later in terms of giving direction if we want to move forward with a parcel tax, but we have not had a discussion from our board members in depth about making a decision as of yet.
Okay. Based on my experience with ballot measures, if you were going to do a parcel tax, you'd probably want to have that conversation prior to November. So that's why I think we need to have either a special or an ad hoc committee meeting so we can adequately plan for something like that. So perhaps after that May 8th meeting, then we can get to scheduling, if that's the most appropriate. Does that work for
That's
you?
fine.
Excellent. Can I get a motion perhaps to have a special meeting for this topic?
I'll make a motion for a special meeting for the parcel tax.
Thank you.
Second.
Awesome. We've got a motion from Member Collins, a second from Member Martinez. Please call the roll.
Mayor Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Bowders absent, Councilmember Donahue,
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez,
Aye.
Councilmember Pats,
No.
Board Member Collins,
Yes.
Board Member Donaldson,
Yes.
Board Member Inch,
Yes.
Board Member Nguyen,
Yes.
Board Member Vargas.
Yes.
So the motion for a special meeting passes. Staff will work to schedule a date.
Thank you. All right, 6.2, update on third-party rental.
Good evening. This one? Wanted to start off first with the overview of the JOA. We have some new members, and it's probably been a while since everybody's heard it. We did do a previous presentation to the school board a few months back, and I'm going to start off here. So as known with the lease, it's the JOA, joint agreement between the school district and the city that leases back this facility to the city, and then there's some lease backs to the school district. It's a 66-year lease, so we started in August 1st of 2016, so it's going to go till June 30th of 2082. So we've got a long time together. Some of the things in the JOA that's listed out is the custodial, maintenance, and security of the site is the responsibility of the district. The Community Services Department oversees and manages the third-party rentals of the school district and the city. After the school schedule is put into place, and we have a process with that Brad will go over later on in more detail, and then the city programs are put into place, and then we go into third-party rentals. All the revenue collected is deposited into an ECCL account. All the spaces are shared, except the administrative offices. That includes this facility, Building A, Building C, Building D, the field, the pool, and the gymnasium, and the classrooms. Everything except the administrative offices, which are divided up in the first floor of Building B. The percentage share that's current in here based on usage, the percentage share for the replacement reserve, which is the CIP replacement program, has been 23% for the city and 77% for the school district. The district chief business officer is managing the operating account and the O&M operation and maintenance account. The city and district pay their percentage share for the operating costs, which is currently at, for the city, 29%, and for the district, 71%. That was based on a methodology that was used and presented at meetings a long time ago, that they came up where there's program drivers that are determining who uses certain areas. There's 82 program areas. 15 of them are divided, are run by the city, and 63 are by the school district, the way it was set up originally. And there's 4 programs that are divided between the city and district when it was originated. One of the other things is, it was kind of mentioned in the contract that we would go through a 5-year period where we would kind of evaluate the usage after 5 years and then determine if it needed to be changed. There's a governance overview, 2-tiered structure, which is the governance committee, which is here tonight and consists of the council and board. So the governance committee overview discussed and takes action on items referred by the administrative committee. They approve annual operation and maintenance percentage allocations for each party, approve and recommend individual parties and budget operations and policies as necessary. The administrative committee overviews the shared matrix policies that need to be recommended to the governance committee, any issues, solutions, potential changes, and submit annual of the review of the budget operations, maintenance, and renovations that would come to the governance committee, which you're going to see later on, and will be recommended for approval of a budget for the mid-year adjustments of 18-19 and also the proposed budget for 19-20. The O&M committee is a committee that meets regarding with the director of maintenance, issues of maintenance costs and other related issues, discuss maintenance contracts and allocations. There's a program committee that meets with the principals and certain other main staff that are involved to discuss programming and scheduling of school schedule, city schedule, and third-party schedules and the process for that. That kind of concludes the part about the JOA. I'm going to turn over information that'll be about third-party rentals, unless there's questions right now you'd like me to answer, or wait on Brad's presentation on third-party rentals.
Yes, you have a clarifying question?
Thank you, Mayor Medina. I did have 2 questions for the presenter, and then one question which I think maybe is best to refer to Dr. Scott privately. My first questions have to do with the administrative and program committees. Are there permanent designees from each of the boards to those committees, or are those kind of representatives who serve as needed?
The administrative committee is actually the Dr. Scott and the city manager and any other designated staff to be attending the meetings to bring information.
And then in regards to the program committee, Dr. Scott is the representative from the school board as well?
Dr. Scott's invited those meetings. Most of them is the principals from each of the schools, and sometimes we're also trying to get in the coaches and any of those involved in scheduling activities that are needed.
And then my last question is something that hadn't come to my mind when we heard this information previously. And so maybe, Dr. Scott, we can speak privately later if it's better. But the question that I'm thinking about right now in hearing about the spaces being shared aside from the administrative spaces makes me think about a calendar event that's very prominent for the school district now, which is the testing window. And I'm thinking about the storage of standardized testing materials and where the secure storage spaces are for those materials and what it means to have them kept in places that might be shared between the school district and the city.
Thank you, Member Nguyen. Currently, we are using the CASP, so that is online and it's secured in our in the web base. So there aren't any materials in a storage that would be easily accessible. It's a login that's required for that.
And we don't have any students, for example, who take the CAPA or any of the assessments that aren't available online.
With the CAPA, it is in the learning centers, and those are secured and not used by other outside parties.
So those fall into the category of administrative spaces, spaces that are not shared.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, Pats.
Can you go back a couple of slides for me, please? So, one more. Is it I'm looking for the replacement account, which might be one of the first ones. There it is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned the pool as a shared space. I was under the impression that was actually a carve-out from the JOA and not included in them. Am I wrong on that?
The pool space is,
I thought that was, it's
What's that?
included in the replacement cost? Because I keep hearing the pool is a separate thing.
Mayor Medina, if I could.
we are the main drivers of the pool. So that is a space that we're considered as one of the main drivers, but we do share space.
Well, I'm talking about the road.
Capital replacement.
Oh, capital replacement.
Where the
That
main
falls more under the, that's based on what each agency put into the construction of the project here at ECCL. That's what that was based on and how it was set up for CIP replacement.
So for any repairs to the pool, we're only responsible for 23%.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Mayor Medina, if I could address that. I think the question pertains to a conversation we had at the last governance committee meeting about the pool not being included in the capital replacement schedule that's attached to the joint operating agreement. And that is something that Dr. Scott and I have been working on. It is true that that's not a listed item in that schedule, but there are some broader categories that we think we can apply, and we don't foresee having any capital needs around that can't be funded in the next budget cycle. So we're looking at sort of further out what it would look like in terms of the overall repair and replacement in the capital replacement schedule, but it is not a listed item in that schedule.
Okay. Thank you. Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to have Brad come up and talk about third-party rentals.
Good evening, everyone. right, so the main purpose of the programming committee is to discuss actual usage of the space. So there's an internal set of procedures in which both the city and the school district have agreed to provide their space needs by 3 deadlines that are set throughout the year, once for summer, once for fall, once for spring. Once those deadlines are met, and both entities have provided all of their space needs, and those are entered into our facility booking system. After that, any space that is left over that is still available is then rented out to, or is available to be rented out by third parties. So the city is currently leading the effort to rent out available space to third parties, and in our current year, we are projected to bring in $300,000 in revenue for the O&M fund, and that is not including some additional fees that the city charges directly to the consumer to recoup some of its costs. So all revenue that is collected from third parties are deposited into the ECCL operating account, as I said, except for direct staff and the facility attendant, and that's the staff person who's actually on site during the third parties. So some of the types of the third party rentals that we see, we have 2 Christian groups that rent out the space. We have one that rents out Building A every Sunday and one that rents out Building C every Sunday, and they also do some additional activities throughout the week. We have several sports groups that rent out the gym, the field, and the pool. We also have a rental each Monday from Loyola Marymount University, who uses all of the classrooms in Building D. And that's a very brief summary of where the majority of our rental revenue comes from. In addition to that, there's also the random one-off rentals, the birthday parties, the other personal uses that people rent space for. Some of the fees that we're proposing to update the fees this year to provide an opportunity for our regular users to have a volume discount. And we're also increasing the fees both by CPI, which is estimated to be 3.5% this year, and to increase the fees so that they are proportionate with the discounts that we're proposing. And the thought process behind that is that we will end up breaking even. So the idea is that we will ultimately be charging more to the one-offs, and it won't affect the people who are having long-term rentals significantly. So the prices for them will go up along with CPI, and we're hoping to be able to attract additional long-term rentals. So I'll take any questions at this time.
Member Nguyen?
Pardon me for not being familiar. CPI stands for?
I'm sorry, Consumer Price Index.
Thank you.
Yes, Member Donaldson.
It's not really a clarifying question. Is that where we are? It's more of a discussion.
Then we'll get to it. Any clarifying questions? Yes.
I have a quick clarifying question. As a community member, how do I know when the field is free for use? What's the best resource? Where should I look for?
Sure. Well, generally speaking, the field is available in the evenings and weekends when school is not in session, and also before school. There are signs posted around the main entrances to campus that outlines when the public times are available. However, if there's organized sports going on, we do close down the track for safety purposes, and we have staff on site that kind of police that while that's happening.
Thank you. And how would I know if there's somebody renting the field and therefore I cannot use the field?
There's not currently a way for the public to know that in advance. However, if people contacted us, we would let them know.
Okay, thank you.
Member Martinez?
Hey, Brad, I was just wondering if there were specific parties or groups that you were hoping to attract with the attractive long-term rental pricing? Or if folks have come in and said, if only it was this price, I would be happy to make the 6-month, 1-year commitment.
We haven't experienced groups coming in that are interested in long-term commitments that we haven't been able to work with. One of the reasons that we're proposing the volume discount is so that we can attract additional groups. Right now, I would say the areas that have the most potential for being leased out, we would love to get another group similar to LMU who come in and they use classroom space because the classroom spaces are really the most under-rented. And a group like that where it's basically students that are learning to become teachers, so they're really ideal tenants because they come in and they're learning to be teachers and they know how to respect classroom spaces. So that's the ideal situation.
Any other clarifying questions? All right, I'll open this up for any public comment. That's the end of is that the end of the presentation, Brad?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Any public comment on this item? Thank you so much. Any discussion on this item? You had one? Yep.
I feel like I kind of tiptoed around this, or not tiptoed, just I have a hard time. The last presentation, I felt like I sort of brought this up, that I have a hard time envisioning the revenue, the total revenue opportunity, and how much room to grow is there, and are we? Is it something that we're nowhere near capacity for rentals and we could be generating hundreds of thousands of dollars more? Or what's the big picture there in terms of opportunity?
It really depends on the space. I think there is more opportunity in some spaces than others. In particular, I think our sports facilities are near capacity. I don't think there's a whole lot of opportunity for growth there in terms of third-party rentals. There is some opportunity in our multi-purpose spaces, such as the one that we're in and Building A. They're normally rented out on the weekends, but not often during weeknights. But as I mentioned earlier, the most opportunity is in the classrooms because they're sparsely rented at this point.
Oh, yes. Number one.
One thing that I know that we had discussed as the school board, and I'm curious to hear the city perspective on this. I know we had potentially been considering this as a future agenda item of ours, is considering how the shared usage of the space is going for the primary tenants, which is the students and teachers and community of the school. So one thing I hear you talking about is the expansion to the use of additional classroom space, which is such a fantastic resource for pre-service teachers to be able to see the way the spaces are set up and the materials are implemented. We've also heard at board meetings, however, from teachers who spend their time in the mornings before class on Tuesday after LMU has been in there Monday night, reorganizing their classroom because it's been left in disarray. So I think just one question in my mind is how the shared use of space regarding the third-party rentals is going for the primary users of the space, and also what types of things we can put in place as we look to expand to ensure that all the that there's peace among the users.
I'd like to add on to what Member Donaldson was saying. I think if we aren't currently getting metrics of, what percentage of rental capacity we're at, that would be really interesting to see next time. And I think, as you mentioned, maybe it's smarter to break it up between different types of rental space. I'd be interested in seeing that in November when we come back.
Yeah, and I mean, along those lines, if a classroom is rented for $29 an hour and they're renting it, how many times, how many hours a night, how many times a week, all that kind of stuff, where I have a hard time envisioning, are we talking thousands? In terms of your time spent, is it worth pursuing, or is it not? Or
I think I'll note that I believe 300,000 is above our projection for this year. So well done so far. Any other discussion items on this? Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. If you wouldn't mind, I would like to let Member Nguyen know that after those comments were made at the last board meeting, we contacted the high school, and we had a meeting with LMU to discuss the concerns that were brought by the teachers. So we are doing our best to address those concerns, and that we are continuing that conversation on an ongoing basis to make sure that everyone's satisfied with the shared space, the shared use of the classrooms.
Thank you so much for that update.
Thank you. Thanks, Brad. All right. Update, we're on to 7.1, review and approval of O&M budget and capital program and fees.
We have a presentation by Dora. Do you have that one back? The budget one?
I have this one. You want that one? Let's see. No, I don't think I have that one. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I don't have that one. Sorry.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dorcio. I'm the CBO at Emory Unified School District. Apparently, there are total of 3 packages that we posted on the agenda for tonight. And the first one that I actually want to go over is the one on the multi-year, the one on the spreadsheet.
Probably the third one and fourth.
The one that looks like this, with the columns on it?
Page 5.
That one right there.
Everybody have it?
This one, right?
Yes, that one.
Yes. It's the 5th page of the packet. We can share.
Okay, so I'm ready to go. Okay, so on this worksheet that you're looking at right now, it's basically giving you the information all the way from the first year that we move into the ECCL site, which is 2016 to 17, all the way to the next year, 2019 and 20 projected budget. So 2016-17, you will see these are audited actuals for 16-17, 17-18. But for this year, the 18-19, I've given you the information on the original budget, the first interim, second interim, and the estimated actuals, which is the projected ending number at the end of June 30th, 2019. So on the last column, which is the 1920 original budget. But again, this is a working budget right now because in our county financial accounting system, we haven't even posted the school budget yet for next year. So this is done 100% manually work at this time, just to give the information to the best of our knowledge at this time as of today. So any questions on this worksheet? Because the maintenance budget is pretty well the funding, the funding that we're going to get under the maintenance budget is basically, number one, is the third-party rental, which you guys just discussed earlier. And then the other 2 sources of funding is going to come out from the city share, which is the 29%, and the school share of the maintenance budget, which has come to 79%. And this budget, you will see the funding is always equal to the expenditures. So any questions on this worksheet?
Yes. Between the original budget for 2018-19 and the estimated actuals, I see pretty big gaps from classified salaries dropped 43K and supervisorial and administrative salaries are up 86K from the original to the estimate. Can you tell me where that is?
Well, apparently after talking with the Vicente, you can, step in if you need to put in any more input. But as far as I know, the overtime budget, apparently we do see some savings in the need of cutting out the overtime that we need from the custodians. So that's why during the meeting that we had last week, we are comfortable in cutting the overtime budget from the $10,000 to the $6,000.
Sorry, that was not my question. My question was about classified salaries, which went down from 223,000 to 180, and about supervisorial and administrative salaries, which went up from 40 to 126.
Okay. Apparently, in the middle of the school year in 1819, we hire a custodian as our fourth custodian in staff. During the original budget, what we roll over is the 4 custodians position. So that's the reason why you see the 223,000 under the 1819 original budget. But we did have hard time actually getting the qualified custodian on staff. That's why we've been putting the money to the sub-budget, because we have to get more subs in while the position is still vacant. So now, in the middle of the year, we finally able to hire a full-time custodian in the middle of the year. So that's why you will see from the second interim to the estimated actuals, you see an increase from the 180,000 to, well, actually, you will see the increase from the 180,000 right now to, actually the 180,000 is actually the increase on the budget, including the hiring of the 4 custodian. But what I'm trying to say is on the sub-budget, you will see from the 40,000 that we originally put under the original budget, now you're seeing actually on the estimated actuals, we're going to see a $28,000. The reason for the reduction of the sub-budget, because now with the hiring of the full-time custodian, we should be able to cut the need for the custodian sub.
Okay. And what about supervisorial and administrative salaries going up by 86,000?
Well, during the 1819 original budget, which there was a proposed budget savings by cutting the maintenance budget, which is proposed by our prior superintendent. So that's why in the original budget, you will see $207,000 being praised in the supervisor budget. But because after consideration from the board, they determined that we still need a full-time maintenance position. Instead of reclassify that position into a CSEA, a classified position, so the board turned down the recommendation by the prior superintendent. So the budget needs to be fixed in order to put in another management maintenance director position in there.
Thank you. Any other clarifying questions? Yes, member one.
Hello, Dora. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us, as always. I just want to be certain that I'm understanding that the preliminary budget that you're sharing here with us for the 2019-2020 school year, of course, reflects the budget as it would stand were there to be no changes that would come as a result of any negotiations that happen in any negotiations that happen this spring.
As far as the FTEs for the custodians, we are still going to be maintaining the 4 full-time custodians that we have. And now we have a full-time maintenance manager that managing the maintenance program right now. So as far as we know, we are not going to see any change in the FTEs for 1920.
And I guess I was thinking more specifically, I should have been more clear around things like certificated salaries and employee benefits.
You mean classified salaries?
They don't apply.
It's only classified.
Because
I'm sorry,
yeah.
classified salaries, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right.
Thank you.
Right now, the 216,000 that you're seeing under 1920 for the classified salaries, it's basically the 4 custodians. And because they move up the step and column each year, these are the most up-to-date information that we projected for next year.
Thank you.
With the new step and column.
Keep rolling.
Okay, all right. And the classified over time, you will see it's a slight increase from 6,000 to 9,000 for next year. And then the sub-budget, it's going to be 28,000 down to 20,000 because we have the full-time 4 custodians now, so it should be lower than what we spent in 1819 for 1920. And then the next line item is the supervisor salaries. That will be the 30% of the CBO position and also the full-time maintenance director position. And then the next one is the employee benefits that will be including the PERS, the FICA, the Medicare, the health and welfare, the SUI, and also the workers' comp. Next one is the materials and supplies. So basically it's going up from 69,000 in 1819 to 70,000 in 1920. And then the next item is non-capitalized equipment. We don't see we need any expense for next year for that line item. Next one, travel and conference, is going up a little bit by $200 from $1,076 to $1,200. And then the property insurance, that's a good news. Apparently, I was told by ASIC, Alameda County School Insurance Group, we will see actually a slight drop on the insurance for next year for Emory. And then the next one is the electricity. After discussion with the city and also the maintenance operations, we decided we do need to keep a budget of $220,000 for 1920 for electricity. And then gas is pretty well stable at $74,000. And then water is $43,000 for 1920. And then next one is the other services and operating expense. Pretty well, that is the I missed it. The repairs actually is the $10,000. So it's pretty well from $8,000 to $10,000 from 1819 to 1920. The other one, the $25,000 under other services, is pretty well is the PBIP that we're talking about here. So it's pretty well the same as what we have in the estimated actuals under 1819. And then the audit expense going up a little bit from $4,000 to $5,000. And then the services, actually that's one of the items that being increased most compared to the other items. It's from $160,000 to $191,000 to be expected in 1920. And then the last one is the network. It's pretty well the same 13,008 in 1920. So we are expected to have a budget of $1.3 million in 1920. So any questions on this worksheet?
Dora, regarding the expenses related to the PBIT, is that just for this campus or is that for? Yeah,
Just for
okay.
the ECCL parcel, yeah.
Thank you.
It's pennies, but it's stuck in my head. Who are we sending to a conference and why?
Is our maintenance director.
Vicente Ramos, Director of Maintenance and Operations. Conference, it's called the CASH Conference, California Housing, School Housing Authority. You have directors from all over the state that come. You have, and everyone's sharing information. There's vendors from everything from floor products to project managers, construction that show up to this conference. And then there's also I've taken a couple other classes just to stay with whatever's coming up new. So those are the conferences that I've attended this year.
Do you find them useful?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a lot of networking as well for me. You know, for the district as well. Like I met a lot of people, and I can reach out to them, and when I have questions, and see what they're doing on their end and how they're approaching, you know, any new state laws that are coming and who they're reaching out to. So we can stay on top of it.
Any other clarifying questions? One more regarding the P-bid. When will that, I just wanted to clarify when that will be paid.
We're up to date as far as all from, that I can say for 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19, and then also the settlement has been paid, the first payment has been made also.
Excellent. And it'll be scheduled for next year as well?
Yes. I will have to say that I think we might need to do a correction on the P-bid. I believe it's probably anywhere between 28 and 29,000 for next year.
Yeah, we can change that.
So we're going to need to change.
in-
Thank
Mayor,
you so much for your partnership. on
Mayor
that.
Medina, what we've also committed to do is have the finance department send an invoice for the arrears payment on the settlement agreement so that it's clear, so that it helps the district, differentiate between that and then the regular P-bid payment.
Great.
And also, just for the city information, now we are clear in the ECCL PBIP, and also we are clear on the general fund PBIP too.
Thank you so much.
Another new member question, PBID stands for?
Property-based improvement district, it is the parcel assessment that pays for the Emery go-round.
Fascinating, thank you.
So I have a question when it comes to the P-bid. All the agreements were made many, many, many years ago with different people at the table. And when can we revisit that?
Madam Mayor, if I can take a crack at that. The P-bid was recently reapproved in 2015, and that is the year that the assessments were established for the benefited parcels. The settlement agreement, as I understand it, was reached last year after some discussion about previously unpaid bills. So those relate back to prior year's payments. But the current annual assessment was approved by majority protest vote by the voters in 2015.
So when would be a good time to try to address who's using the Emery go-round versus who's paying for it?
So that runs through 2030, as I understand it. The authorization by the voters was a 15-year authorization.
So how do we voice our concerns? When would be the platform to voice our concerns? Because I've been kind of doing a little survey myself, and I've been looking at who's been using the Emery go-round.
Can I do public comment, then we do this in discussion? Because I think we're
Okay,
getting into
but-
discussion more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't even have to discuss it now. I just wonder when would be the platform to try to have a conversation around it.
No, totally fair. I just want to make sure we're by the book on that.
Okay.
Any more clarifying questions before I do public comment?
Yeah,
All right.
I-
Yes, go for it.
I'm notorious among my organization for not yet having read the complete book about how to do all of this, so this might not be the right time for this question, but as someone who's new, I would be interested now or later for anyone who's available to advise me on where I could look to do some self-study about the PBID, what it involves. I have a general understanding of the arrangements and the history, colorful as it may be, and I would like to learn more, so if someone can advise me about where I can go to find that information.
I can help you with that.
Dora, thank you very much. A quick question for you. I'm looking at estimated actuals for third-party rentals versus the preliminary budget for 2019. and that preliminary budget is less than the estimated actuals for this year by about $11,000 or so. So do we anticipate to get less revenue from that?
The 11,000, there were some corrections from 16, 17, and 17, 18 of revenue. That was additional, so that's on top. So 300 is the same estimate for this year. That was from previous, the 11,000.
What was the correction? What was the correction amount to?
11,770 were corrections from 2 previous years that we found that we put the revenue in now.
Thank you, Beto.
So it's a one-time additional funding in 1819.
Any other clarifying questions? Okay, any public comment on this item? Okay, now let's go ahead and discuss.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Can I hopefully add some clarification, because I feel like the PBID will get us off of the agendized items. I think there's two different, to me, there seems to be some confusion between, the PBID is I'm going to call it a tax, I know I'm using the wrong word there, an assessment, but the PBID is voted on that is in place and staying in place until 2030. But I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there's a concern about the route that the Emeryville round goes, and for that I would direct you to, what?
The TMA.
That's what I was going to say. So TMA, and I think, maybe we can have them come to a school board meeting to address that, but this isn't that venue because nobody here controls their routes, it's the TMA. And so maybe that, I don't know if that answers your question or helps.
So it's more of a concern I have. And when I look at the people that's utilizing the Emeryville round, they're kind of a lot of techies. They're making over 100 grand, a lot of them, versus our students. Now, there was a time when our students was using the Emeryville round. We had a high number of students using the Emeryville round. But as far as, I would like to see our money go to educating our students versus for paying for a little bus to come through Emeryville. And I think it's a good amenity for Emeryville to offer the service. But I'm just feeling like the money could be used to educate our students versus paying a tax that's been imposed on us that those of us sitting at the table did not authorize. So it's more of a concern than a question. I'm not sure how we would address my concern, but...
And if I may, I do want to let you know that the city manager, Christine, and I have been in conversations with regards to this, and we're working collectively with TMA in order to see what can be done. But it's a process, and I will be sure to provide an update for the board, but we are working together, and I thank her for the partnership. We are working towards that.
Great.
So would that be a future agenda item, or?
Yeah. Can we bring it up to future agenda items?
Okay, so we can do that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right. Thank you.
Just thank you to everyone for your patience. TMA stands for? And who is that?
They're the people who run the PBID, basically. They're in charge of the go-round. Sorry. They're in charge of the Emory go-round. They make it go round.
So they're the people who actually handle the scheduling, handle where the buses sleep at night, handle whether or not the students are receiving the services that it sounds like they were originally intended to based on what time and where the buses stop.
So yeah,
those
we're
types
not in
of
charge
things.
of the TMA. We are the tax collector. The assessment collectors on behalf of the TMA.
Yes.
So we are responsible under the current PBID for getting the money, and then we turn it all over to the TMA, and they run the service.
Thank you so much. That was a very clear explanation.
We have the being the collector.
And while I think we're way off topic here, to be clear, the voters of Emeryville are the ones taxing you. The city had nothing, we're not in charge of how the voters vote. They put this assessment in place, and because the school district's in town, that's the voters' choice. It's not anything we as the city control.
And
thank you.
Any more budget discussion? Anything else? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
So, Madam Mayor, there are 4 action items, and the last one we just want to remind you of was the proposed rental fees.
Yes.
So I don't know if you'd like Mr. Jimenez to go over those in addition to what was presented during the third-party rental update. There is an attachment that has color on it, if I'm...
I added a bigger copy
Thank
so everybody
you.
can read it.
Yours is bigger than mine.
Pedro, I wanted to make sure we found it.
Mine looks like this.
He trusted you.
I thought you guys like a bigger copy so you can see the numbers.
Thank you.
So a few things that I would like to just point out. As Brad mentioned earlier, overall, the recommendation we're making is to go with the CPI of 3.5% for a lot of them. There's a few areas that I will correct that I just seen that if you see the highlighted first area, we added in a fee that would be for at least requested time, which is non-regular hours that would have a fee. And this fee here is what you see is that's the portion that goes to ECCL fund. And then you also have an area where it's highlighted with no change in the middle of the page. That's the attendant fee, which is at $18 an hour, which we're saying to keep the same. So if you add the two up, that's what we actually charge the consumer. But the portion that comes to ECCL operating fund is the, for example, $22 that's being suggested for the non-regular hours, Monday through Thursday. And then the other $18 goes for the staff that is assigned to work it through, to recover our direct costs. The next one that we have is the pool rental, also from 5 to 8 a.m. We're trying to hopefully establish that we maintain these long-term rentals or entice other renters to come in at this time to have those costs. And then you have your regular times and price that we have there. And the biggest one that's down below is the ongoing rentals, the volume discounts. And they have the different dates, which you have 6 or more dates, 12 or more dates, and they range from 10% to 30%. And we feel this will hopefully help us sustain what we currently have in place and hopefully also attract additional volume rentals. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And Madam Mayor, this would be coming to the City Council for the master fee schedule amendment on May 21st.
Thank you. Clarifying questions?
I have one. So, hi, Pedro. Thank you for doing an amazing job, as always. When you say long-term and the percentage, is that based on monthly, weekly?
So it's based on, these are based on 6 or more rentals on the application they put in, or if someone's 40 or more dates, that means they're really doing year-round. Like,
So
for
it's
example,
per
a church group
application?
that's doing every Saturday throughout the
Okay.
year.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's,
Whatever they put on the
application.
application the first time they come in.
Okay, thank you.
Pero, what's the projected total revenue increases from, like, assuming we would apply all these price changes to the distribution of these rentals today, what would be the anticipated incremental revenue they would get from these changes? Do you happen to know?
My estimation is at minimum, we'll sustain where we're at. Ideal situation and being conservative, I'm hoping that we'll be around 330. But to be conservative, to make sure we keep all the rentals and everything, it's sustaining the 300,000 that we currently have. But if everything went well, 3% of 300,000 would be $30 more thousand.
3% of 300,000 would be
Oh, I'm sorry, no. you're
10,000.
right. 10,000, yeah, so 310, I'm sorry, yes.
Uh-huh.
Mixed that up, sorry.
Okay.
So at least an additional 10,000 to start off, but maybe because of the volume rental discount that we can now mention to renters, that might increase our rental capability and additional rental.
But assuming we don't do anything,
Yes, we should sustain that.
assuming
three-
we sustain the same levels of bookings,
Yes.
we
We're
would
hoping to keep everybody
anticipate
that we currently have here so they continue with this.
anticipate an additional $10,000. in
Yes.
revenue. Thank you.
I have one more. So Pedro, when we speak of long-term rentals and with you guys trying to increase that, are we looking at the renters having an opportunity for space? So if they're like the church, do they have an opportunity for space so that they don't have to keep bringing everything back and forth? Or like the classrooms in the evening, do they have to bring everything back and forth, or is there opportunity for space?
We deal with it on a case-by-case basis. We do have, for example, that we have an arrangement for one of the church groups that has a pod outside and a non-parking space. So that's one example where we had an arrangement that we discussed between the school district and the city administrators.
Okay.
So we try to work out where we can and if possible, but
Okay, that's fair. Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? All right, any public comment on this item? you. Any discussion of these fees? And what action are you looking for us? Just feedback on this?
Oh, we need an action.
Madam Mayor, we
motion.
need a approval of the budget for the mid-year adjustments for 1819 and the proposed budget for 1920 by this committee.
But the
As
fee
well as the
change-
new proposed rental fees?
Yes.
No, the fees will be going to the city council.
Okay.
Those are presented for information as supporting the budget.
Okay.
So I move
Yes.
approval of the interim budget and the proposed budget.
I second that.
All right, we've got a motion by Member Pats and a second by Member Donahue. Call the roll.
Call the roll. Mayor Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember Bowders absent. Councilmember Donahue?
Aye.
Councilmember Martinez?
Aye.
Councilmember Pats?
Yes.
Board Member Collins?
Yes.
Board Member Donaldson?
Yes.
Board Member Inch?
Yes.
Board Member Nguyen?
Yes.
Board Member Vargas?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that puts us at 8. Update from Administrative Committee. Do we have anything? What is that?
We don't
exactly?
have anything. It's us.
Okay, it's you guys. No update?
On how you worked very
Just
well
a
together.
photo op, okay.
We have many things we're working on. We'll report in November.
Okay, exciting. Can't wait. 6 months. All right, so no update. Future agenda items? We've got
So we
9.1.
have 2 proposed for November. One we wanted to check with you on. It was a presentation on after-school programs, which had been given in the past, as we understand it. And we put that on just in case the committee was interested in hearing that again in November. So seeing no one saying no, we'll include that. And then at the last meeting, the committee had asked for an update on solar installation, and Vicente, he's left. He is working on that, right? And we'll come back in November. So that's something that we have talked about at administrative committee as well.
Great. Any other future agenda items?
I guess there's no sense in putting the P-bid on a future agenda item since it's in place till 2030.
You could take this to the TMA rather than this body. That might be more appropriate if you wanted to have a discussion with the TMA as they are engaged in.
Okay.
Okay, so nothing for this body. Okay, so those future agenda items, 9.1 and 9.2 going forward. 10, any announcements or member comments? Yes, Member Donahue.
I looked at Google Earth satellite at these buildings. There is a lot of space for solar on these roofs. And PG&E is in a little bit of trouble, and they're really requesting major rate changes. And many cities in California are saying that they're going to have what they would say are maybe carbon-free buildings, meaning that they're getting rid of natural gas in new buildings by 2030 in San Francisco, and suggesting that older buildings remodel to use electricity instead of natural gas. So I think the discussion about these roofs and having solar is a really appropriate future item to have.
Thank you. Any other announcements or member comments?
I just want to take a moment, I'm going to call it by the wrong name, the Spring Festival,
Community Expo.
the Community Expo.
How is it not the Spring Fling?
It's both, really. We combine both. It's the Community Expo and Spring Festival, right? So it is both events.
The egg chase with booths was really amazing. And I just want to take a moment. The facility just shined, and Pedro, your staff did an amazing job. And I don't know if I saw any of the others of you there, but it was just incredible. The students were out, the kids were out. It was just awesome. So thank you for that.
I second that comment.
It was phenomenal, and my favorite part was when I got to do the countdown, and then you just heard a roar of tongues. You heard like a battle cry. Best moment of the year for me.
Did anyone get dunked?
Who got dunked?
There was a teacher and a couple of school staff and after-school staff that were done.
Yes. I personally witnessed dunkings.
Okay, yes.
On the topic of community events, I received in the mail my Emeryville, twice yearly upcoming, the activity guide, thank you. And I recall with great admiration from last summer, the photos that I saw of the city council as they participated in the, again, I don't know the real name of this event, but the Let's Watch a Movie in the Pool. Yes, yes. And I don't know, I can't speak for other members of my body, but if there were to be a partnership between I like to dress up, and I also like the pool, and I also like movies. So if anyone would like to, I would love to collaborate with the city council around the Let's Watch a Movie in the Pool costume and
The dive-in.
But
Now you know. That's
Very
Stacy.
nice.
I'm sure that's all Stacy, that name.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Let's get in contact with Stacy. She is the one who arranges the costumes and aggressively ordered me an Ariel wig off of Amazon.
Oh, you don't get to choose your own.
You can choose.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're a collaborative body, so we tend to negotiate ourselves, but it sounds like maybe you have someone else chooses for you. I just want to be part of it,
No,
so
we'll talk
don't leave me
together
out.
about it, and Christian shows up and whatever.
I think the phrase I would use is we all trust in Stacy.
We all trust in Stacy.
That's the phrase I would use.
Well, being new to Stacy, I'll trust in her as well, but I'll be in touch to let her know I'd like to dive in myself to join you.
Fantastic.
I'd love to have you there.
Thank you.
And then Member Collins had brought it up just now, the shortest triathlon.
yeah.
And we haven't talked about it at council yet, but we have participated in this event a couple of times, and I'm sure we'll all be signing up again.
What's that?
For the world's shortest triathlon, which I believe this year is taking place in October.
Right.
And, we, on city council, a couple of members do all of the events, but a few of us choose to do a relay for those who are maybe afraid of open water swimming or not in love with the other events as well. They're all quite short for whatever your strength is. So would love to see
last time
the
there
school
was
board
a
join
challenge
us.
between the city and the school, so maybe we can keep that tradition.
Would love to just have friendly competition.
So I have
on
an
that day.
announcement. So last night, I had the pleasure of attending Stop the Bleed, and it was hosted by Alameda County. It was held here on the ECCL campus, and it was amazing. I would like to encourage city council members to make sure all staff and school district, all staff take this course. It's my understanding that Alameda has received a grant, so maybe we can reach out. We all do first aid, and I'm a big advocate of being a dual district employee, that anyone, anywhere, if you babysit, if you come in contact with children, just like you have to be TB tested and fingerprinted, I believe you should be CPR certified. And after last night, I believe you should get the certificate for Stop the Bleed, because it's more like tourniquet. And with the mass shootings, unfortunately, on the campuses, and the gun violence and the stabbings, and you never know where you're going to be that someone's bleeding versus needing the CPR, that we would be able to save their lives. So I would like to see if maybe all after-school employees of the city and all of our teachers and staff would kind of take this training. And I got a certificate. I love certificates.
Okay, I've got one last one. I'm happy to announce our first ever Rotten City Block Party on August 24th. You're all invited. We're throwing block party. We're throwing a Emeryville style block party this summer. The previous mayor was excellent at throwing small events every month. I'm better at throwing ragers. So August 24th, that Saturday. We're going to have a lot of local businesses involved. It's going to be very heavy on Emeryville history and in leaning into our super fun, corrupt past while celebrating our bright future as a city. You can dress up.
I would love to dress up, and also being from the Midwest, I am an expert in block parties. So if there's a committee, a subcommittee, a standing committee, an ad hoc committee, I'd like to be on it.
You're on it.
Thank you.
Yes. The hot dish committee, since she's Midwestern.
Okay.
It's a type of casserole thing.
Sign me up for something. How about Rotten City Pizza?
I'm certainly inviting them.
Yes.
But we had the name before they did. Okay. Any other announcements?
Yes, minutes before this meeting started, our high school softball team won 11-1. So, worthy of applause. Thank you.
Oh, I have one more item. Before we adjourn, I totally screwed up. I had a request from Member Bowders. He is not here for a future agenda item to discuss campus signage in November.
Yes.
That was a request. I would like to add that if I can get a second.
Second.
Excellent.
One more. I want to congratulate teacher Jessica Critchler-Wright and the debate team again for exceeding our expectations of what a debate team could bring to the table.
Okay, great. So we've got that as a future agenda item? Or do you need- We're good? Okay. Then that's it. I will adjourn this meeting at 6:42.
Yeah.